What I'll do is let's just get started here with this new trimester that is in front of us. So welcome to IB History of the Americas 2.1. And we will continue with the learning that we have had from 1.1 and 1.2. And so what does that really mean here is that we finished with 1.1 and 1.2 reconstruction, and now we're going to kind of hit the fast forward button, and we're going to move on to a couple new topics. And one of those topics is going to be the Great Depression, and so that seems kind of applicable in dealing with an economic crisis of the 20th century, as we are in midst of a potential economic crisis right now with COVID-19. And then the other topic that we will focus on is the Second World War. Okay, and so with that first topic that we are going to address, the Great Depression, really what that means is we're going to look at the cause and effects of the Great Depression, what brings it on. And then we want to look at 3 different countries while we're studying the Great Depression. We want to, of course, naturally look at the United States, but then since this is the Americas, we want to take a look at Canada and Mexico. And we really want to take a look at how 3 of these countries approach the Great Depression. What the leaders of those countries are trying to do is trying to find solutions to the economic crisis for their particular countries, how they weather the storm, and ultimately take a look at the impact. Look at the impact politically, socially, and economically in all 3 of those particular countries. And that will take most of trimester 2.1, and then we'll conclude it with topic 2, which is the Second World War and the Americas. And you know, we'll take a look at the causes. We'll hit some of the highlights of the Second World War, but you'll be disappointed if we don't get into the nitty-gritty details of the strategy and the specificness of the different types of battles. And we'll take a look at also the human experiences in the Second World War, and of course the impact. All right. So it's nice that some people had shared in the chat some of their highlights over the break, which is great. Feel free to add more into the chat so I can get a sense of how we did over our break here. Hopefully you didn't work too much. Took some time to recharge your energy cells and get ready here for 2.1. Okay. For the most part, I know a good number of you. A few of you are new to my section, and so you've come over from Miss Eidengiel, and so hopefully it won't be too much of a shock. In many ways, we're very similar in terms of our teaching. She might have a few more interesting stories to share with the group. All right. So with that, looking at the Great Depression here, in many ways, we can draw some pretty modern parallels to what is happening right now. And so it's extraordinary for you to think about, and you'll have an opportunity to reflect on it in years to come, you know, how you have survived not only the Great Recession, all right, of 2008, 2009, but you've also are dealing with currently with the pandemic and the impact COVID has had on our economy. If anything that we look at, some takeaways from what currently is happening is where one sector of the economy struggles, it impacts the others. And we're going to call that the multiplier effect here. Some of you are going to probably think, hey, Mr. Newcomb, this is a history course, and why are you throwing out some economic principles and ideas out there? You know, with the social studies class, who knows, we'll bring in a lot of different ideas and principles. You know, we'll bring in poli-sci in here at times. We bring in sociology and psychology, so economics seems very appropriate. If you have taken the economics class, you'll be able to apply perhaps maybe some of your understanding of economic principles to this study that we're going on right now. So digressed a little bit here. When we look at the Great Depression and understanding the cause and effects of the Great Depression, what brings it on. All right, and so that puts us back into the 20th century here. When we look at the Great Depression, when it started in 1929, we didn't necessarily refer to it as Great Depression. It's not until about 1931, 32 is all of a sudden we acknowledge that we are in an economic crisis, and we're going to simply call it the Great Depression. And then for us in the United States throughout the 1930s, we're going to try to really grapple with this issue of the Great Depression. And it's really going to test the United States, very much like it's testing the United States right now. What is the role of government when we do have economic crisis, like in the 1920s and 30s with the Great Depression, and then currently right now with the pandemic. But then also, what is the role of everyday citizens in this difficult time? You know, whether it's today or then. You know, I think of my grandparents and my parents. My parents were kids during the Great Depression, and just how were they able to navigate through that difficult time, and their experiences are going to be a lot different. My mom's side of the family's experience is going to be a lot different than my dad's side of the family. It's really two different tales. My dad's side of the family was dirt, scrabble, poor, quite a few kids, one income, and my grandfather was a truck driver, so income was not constant. But on my mom's side of the family, there was a constant economic stream coming in. My grandfather was able to find work consistently throughout the Great Depression. Doesn't mean, though, that they didn't have to endure some moments of difficulty and find ways to sacrifice, but they did. And so extraordinary, again, to reflect and look at how the Great Depression impacted them. All right, and we all might have some type of stories of how the Great Depression had impacted our own individual families as well. Or, you know, if we look at today, we're all going to have different economic impacts from what is currently going on with the pandemic. But then we also realize that there are some social and political effects as well when we deal with these economic crises. All right, so I just threw a lot out there. And so what I want you to do is I've been sharing my screen here. And so we'll just dig in right away. And our first assignment. Okay. And so that first assignment can be found in the week 1 folder. And so hopefully everyone has been able to get into Schoology. And we're looking at the causes of the Great Depression. And if you click on that, that assignment is going to look something like this. And so that's what we want to do, is we want to look at the causes of the Great Depression. What are the factors that are going to contribute to it? It's not going to be one particular thing. If we think of, you know, what caused the Great Depression, and if someone can share what do we commonly think as the reason for the Great Depression? What brings it on? So if someone stopped you on the street and said, "Hey, what's the number one cause of the Great Depression?" What would people say? Either verbalize it or let's put it into the chat. All right, there we go. Stock market crash. Absolutely. We look at the stock market crash of 1929, and there were two crashes that would occur. We have Black Thursday and Black Tuesday, as it's referencing, where massive sell-offs has occurred. And in my day at the University of Minnesota was in the 1980s. We had a huge stock market crash as well in the 1980s, probably even bigger than the stock market crash of 1929. But there were some safety nets in place, and those safety nets were put in place because of the Great Depression and ways that we try to reform the system. And so that impact wasn't as far-reaching. We will get into the 1980s, a little mini recession, but we're going to pull out of it, and a lot of it has to do because of what we learned from the Great Depression. So yeah, the stock market crash. But we used to have a teacher here at Park High. He's now not here. We called him T-High Money Sign, Mr. Highland. And he would say, Mr. Newcomb, you got to make sure that your students understand that it's not just the stock market crash. And T.I. Money Sign used to be one of our economics teachers. And stock market crash definitely is it. It's probably the most visible identifying factor that we have of the Great Depression. But if we look back and analyze, and that's what this activity is going to get you to do, is look at some of the other aspects that are contributing to this economic crisis that does happen here. And we have to look at our financial systems and our banking system. Even though we do have a Federal Reserve system in place, very much like what we have today, for some reason, the Federal Reserve System did not stem the tide here, stop the financial bleeding that was going on. The stock market and some of our real estate deals were heavily unregulated. So we have these get-rich schemes. We have some social economic problems here, especially in rural America. And it was a continuation of what has been happening throughout the 1920s. So there's just a huge calamity storm that's brewing here that's going to happen in 1929. The cycles of international debt is referencing World War I. All right, the United States was pretty much the ATM of the Allies in World War I, and now that debt needs to be paid, and those countries are going to be struggling here, which is going to contribute to some of our issues. And of course, we want to highlight some of the narratives here of the unequal distribution of wealth that's going to impact a variety of groups like women, Native Americans, and African Americans here. So what we're going to do here is you're going to create a visual vocabulary below to help you to understand what is the causes of the Great Depression. Solo activity here. There are a couple articles, and I have attached that to the assignment as well. And so you definitely want to take a look at those. You shouldn't GTS this, and GTS means Google that stuff. Just focus on these two readings. And if you can't find it, then I would probably look in my book. And then, yes, last resort is GTS. Topics, we want to look at the Wall Street crash. We want to look at rural poverty. We want to look at get-rich schemes, the banking system problems, cycles of international debt, and again, the unequal distribution of wealth. So you're looking at 2, 4, 6, 8 different topics here. You can do this either in Notability or in Google Slides. I think it works better in Notability than in Google Slides because there is a hand visual component to this that you need to draw. And so that's why I think Notability works better. But some of us are better savvy at technology, and so Google Slides is it. Could work for you as well. Either case, you want to submit a PDF of this. All right, and so for each topic, you'll need one direct quote from one of the articles to explain the topic. So that's why you should really focus on those two readings. Find something that specifically addresses the Wall Street crash. Then 2 to 3 bullet points of your own words to help give further explanation. So that's going to be that vocabulary definition. All right, and so you don't want to GTS that definition. You really want to just pull it out from the reading, put it in your context, your understanding, 2 to 3 bullet points, and then one hand-drawn visual that helps you explain the topic. And it can be simple. So you see over here some examples there, and I also attached this as well. It's just that visual a little bit bigger here, so you can get a sense, get a little understanding here. Here, this is addressing government issues, so a little political science there. And so you've got your vocab term or your concept. Here's a little bit of the definitions that go along with it and quote, and then of course your visual in there as well. Okay. At the end of your activity, please answer the following 2 summary questions. Of course, you know, we always have to have the BHQ get you to take it to another level here. And so that's to what extent was the Wall Street crash of 1929 the main cause of the Great Depression? All right. It is a cause, but is it the main cause? We'll find out that the stock market actually will find a way to correct itself quicker than the economy does. So it might be one indicator of the health of the economy, but it might not be the total. And then imagine you're an economic professor who can predict future events. If you were told that you could prevent the Great Depression from happening by fixing 2 of the issues from the list above, which 2 would you fix and how would you attempt to fix them? All right, so take a look at that list up there, select 2 of them, and play economics professor and give us your fix. Okay. All right. So when is this assignment due? Well, this assignment is going to be due Wednesday, December 2nd. So you got today, tomorrow, and Wednesday to get this done. So we got 3 days here. And so typically our deadlines are 11:59 deadlines. So, and that will play the case here as well. Okay, does anyone have any questions about this assignment? What your task is? Anything that needs to get clarified? Okay. as always, if you do have questions related to this, please reach out to me. So final thoughts here in regards to the course itself. Keys to success is always just stay on top of the assignments. And Ms. Seiden and I, we have looked at our assignments for trimester 2.1, and whether you want to believe it or not, we have scaled back. And so you can anticipate 2, 3, potentially 4 assignments a week, but typically 2, 3 assignments a week. So just keep on top of those, meet the deadlines. It's important to meet the deadlines. Even though Ms. Seiden and I, we have not penalized you for turning things in late. Let's just meet those deadlines, not take advantage of the goodwill too often. Just meet those deadlines, and then, as always, reach out to myself, ask questions, and attend office hours if you need to, or just simply email me, message me. Many of you have, and I'll respond as quick as possible. All right, so with that, I wish you have a great start. Have a great start to the day. Have a great start to the trimester, and you are free to exit.
Thank you.
Thank you.